Today we're looking at the Voigtlander 55 f1.2 versus the 58 1.4. Some of you asked us to compare the two of them, and thanks to Flaghead Photographic, we now have both in our hands, so we're going to do a little comparison.
Let's give it a go.
So we've used both of these lenses now. The 55 we used for a live stream. We used it out and about in the fields. We also used the 58 for portrait work back when we had it, when we did our first review on it. And you used it for some street and general purpose photography.
This and that, yeah. And overall, the impression about both lenses that they are quite similar. 58, in my opinion, has just more vintage look to it just because of the older coatings on the lens. So you get this flare coming through with a bit of chromatic aberration and purple fringing, but that gives this particular flare a more interesting vintage look, while the 55 controls the flare a little bit in a more modern way. So you don't get all the purple stuff coming in. It's just a pure white or yellow light, whichever white balance you set it on.
Yeah, this is obviously a very specific niche use. And if you look at the two lenses, shooting wide open, the 1.2 and the 1.4, both aren't particularly sharp. Even stopping the 55 1.2 down to 1.4 doesn't make a big difference. It's only when you get to sort of f2 that you get sharper looking center subjects, and then they perform about the same. There's definitely no glaring differences between them.
So yeah, even let's say 58mm 1.4, because it's slightly longer, the depth of field is not that different than 55 1.2. So that extra 3mm focal distance slightly compensates for that.
Yes. A couple of other things to note. The 55 is slightly heavier. This one is 365 grams, while this one is 320. So this one ends up being slightly heavier in the hand, but not a huge difference.
In terms of bokeh rendering is quite similar between the two. It's not really modern rendering. You get this a little bit of swirl here and there, but overall there's very little difference between the two.
They both have electronic contacts, so when putting them on an FTZ and your Z camera, or putting them on a DSLR, you will get all of that aperture information and EXIF data passed through, so there's no difference there.
In terms of build quality, it's something that you come to expect from Voigtlander lenses. It's a really good build quality, all manual build, nice and smooth focusing ring, clicky apertures. So basically, if you have a Voigtlander lens already, you know what to expect from it. Price-wise, again, they're quite similar. It's £519 for 58mm lens, and it's £549 for 55 1.2.
All right, so let me ask you this. Why do you think that Voigtlander decided to bring out the 55 1.2?
It's an interesting question, Becky. I think the main difference between the two lenses is the coatings of the glass, while obviously the optical design is slightly different as well. Because they look very similar, I think it's the modern coatings that bring the lens more up to speed with the higher resolution sensors on current mirrorless cameras. Now, if you've got a 58mm lens already, then don't rush to buy a 55 yet. But if you are considering a purchase between the two lenses, then 55 is a bit more modern, 50 is a bit more vintage. I personally prefer 58mm a little bit just because of that vintage look, but I think you enjoy 55 a little bit more than 58.
I did. I like the 55 focal length very much. I used it on the D800, D780, and if you've got a camera like a D850, I think that the high resolution sensor benefits from the extra coatings and the sort of slightly more modern feel to this one. But I have a Nikon 55 1.2, and this felt like the perfect replacement for that, for the simple reason that it has electronic contacts, all that EXIF data is passed through, and it's just as beautifully built. Whereas I know that you've gotten some great shots out of the 51.4 and would probably lean towards that one.
Fantastic. And if you've got a 55 1.2 Nikon lens, would you upgrade directly, or would you kind of hold on to that and compare the two?
So we've already done a comparison of those two lenses. And I would say if you need the EXIF information passed through to your camera, if you cannot live without your focus confirmation little green square in the middle, then obviously the Voigtlander is the only one that can do that. Wide open, both lenses are not super sharp. So stopping down, you see less and less difference between them. The Voigtlander has a very specific look in that comparison, I would say. And if you like that look, then go for that one. But if you've got a 55 1.2, I still love my Nikon lens. I'm not about to change it. We hope you found this video helpful. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you'd like any other lens comparisons, let us know.
Yeah, if you found this video super useful, there's a super thanks button as well. Hit that when you can.